About 9 minutes. It's your 5-minute call. So if you haven't gotten something to eat, please do so, or grab a cup of coffee and find your seat. Appreciate it. Want to make sure we start on time so we can get you out of here on time. Good morning, everyone. If you can please find a seat, we need to make sure we have a chair for everybody, so grab a seat, we'll get started. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Vinnie Jones Library in Florence Community Center here in the wonderful town of Florence. My name is Craig McClellan. I'm the President and CEO of Pinal Partnership, and so welcome this morning. It's my pleasure to welcome everybody here. Just a housekeeping item. Last time we got together, it was raining, and some people left their umbrellas. So we have 2 umbrellas if you're missing them. One of them is here, and one is out front. So, of course, these are probably disposable rain umbrellas, but anyway. We do have a couple extra umbrellas. Just want to also give a shout out and thank you to, number one, all of our sponsors and all of our corporate sponsors, associate sponsors, individuals and nonprofits, but especially some of the new and renewing members we have. Corporately, Arcus, Rocks Group, thank you both. Associate sponsors, NearCal, Envergy, HDR, and then individuals, Trent Rustin, Ashley Wolf, and nonprofits. The most recent new one is Boys and Girls Club of the Sun Corridor, and then our government is the town of Florence, most recent. So thanks to all of them. Please give them a round of applause. And before we get started, I want to big shout out to SRP for being our breakfast sponsor this morning. Let's give them a round of applause as well. And to remind everybody that we've established these breakfasts on the first Friday of every month. So you can mark your calendar. Put that out through the rest of the year, except for July. Don't put it on July, and you can go on vacation. It's okay. And then our next one is May 2nd. It will be at the Gold Canyon Resort. So for those of you in Phoenix, it'll be a little shorter drive. And then I wanted to just give an opportunity for our sponsor, SRP, and invite their Senior Vice President, Chris Dobson, up just to say a few words. Chris?
No, thank you for having this great event. Linda Brady, she goes, Chris, do you want to say something? I was like, absolutely. I've been doing so much work in Pinal County probably for the last 20 years. Ag is our background. I'm a 4th-generation Arizona farmer. And so I had a hay baling company. And I've baled hay for like the last 20 years from Eloy to Maricopa Stanfield to Florence, Coolidge, Queen Creek, Chandler, and even parts of Mesa. And just to see how much the last 20 years Pinal County has grown, it's truly amazing. And I really, truly believe in my heart that this is going to be the next area of growth to come through. And you can already see it happening from Mesa to Queen Creek to Santan Valley. It's coming to Florence, to Coolidge. And Maricopa Stanfield. Maricopa is huge. Casa Grande is great. We have so much employment. And the neat thing about that with SRP is that tying it in is to making sure that we have power and reliable and affordable and sustainable. Those 3 things are so important that we must have, so that way we can make sure that we continue the growth, good growth, and have places where young families want to come here and live and have a nice community-oriented. And I do also want to give a shout-out, too, to the Pinal County supervisors. They're amazing, every one of them. It's so great to work with them. And then also, too, the local communities. I've done some work, personally with Florence. I got to give a shout-out to Florence. They're my home team, and I appreciate everyone here as well, so thank you. And also Coolidge, too. So, I mean, I have had ties, but and everywhere else is great. Casa Grande. I don't want to say this place is better than the other place, but everywhere in Pinal County is amazing. So, anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. If you talk much longer, they're going to call you a politician. Real quick, I do want to recognize our elected officials here. I know there's many of you here. If you would just please stand up and be recognized, and thank you for your service. One last item here before we get started. We have an emerging Leaders Mixer that's coming up. And I'd like to ask Sophie Dessert to come up and just share a little information with you all about that.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Craig. My name is Sophie Dessart. I'm the Manager of Communications and Public Affairs at Florence Copper, and I also have the privilege of serving on the Emerging Leaders Steering Committee for Pinal Partnership. How many of you in the room have heard of Emerging Leaders? Let's get a show of hands. Okay, we've got a good percentage of the room. For those of you who are not familiar with us, the Emerging Leaders Initiative at Pinal Partnership brings together the next generation of leaders in Pinal County to collaborate and network to benefit our county. Part of this initiative brings us together for quarterly networking events, and we actually have our next networking event coming up in a couple weeks. So we will be at Fat Cats in Queen Creek on April 17th, starting at 5:30 p.m. We will be doing bowling, glow golf, and also free food as well. If you are interested in attending, or maybe you have a mid to early career professional at your organization that is interested in attending, details can be found on the back of your speaker bio. There is a nice poster right here. It has a QR code to register. You also can go to our website, pinalpartnership.com, under the events tab, and you can see the event and register there as well. We hope to see you or a member of your organization there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Now to our topic of the day. This is the state of power in Pinal County, and really this could reflect the state of power in Arizona, as we have our major utilities here. This is kind of a sleeper, I call it a sleeper issue because the public in general doesn't know that we have an issue or potential issue. I know that these folks that you're going to hear from can have plans to address the concerns that are coming up in terms of the need for more power. And so I'll let them speak to that. But there's so much to talk about. We could do 2 more breakfasts on this topic. But we'll get it started today. And let me introduce the panelists. First from APS, the Resource Planning Director, Mike Eugenis. Mike? And from SRP, the Senior Manager, Resource Development, Bill McClellan. And from AES, Arizona Development Director. AES is solar company, in case you don't know who they are. Kellie Pitera, did I say that right? And then from Southwest Gas, the Energy Solutions Senior Manager, Todd Czaplewski. And last but not least, our regulator in the room, Rachel Walden from the Arizona Corporation Commission. And you know where we put her? We put her right in the middle. Right there, Rachel. All right, and then today to moderate, a good friend of ours from Rose Law Group, Mr. Court Rich.
Thank you, Craig. Good morning, everybody. Are we going to do awkward standing? Are we going to sit? What do we think? Yes. I will invite you now to take a seat, everyone. And we have, to make my moderator job a little more interesting, we have 3 microphones for 6 of us. So let's be skillful with that. All right. Let's get going. Good morning, everybody. This is a great panel. There's a lot of good speakers, and we don't have a lot of time. So I want to try to get through everybody and make sure everybody can be heard here. They used to say, or they still say, whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting, but more so than ever, maybe power's for fighting these days, as it's we're in an unprecedented era in Arizona and frankly around the country. And I want to start with our utilities and talk about, you're expecting exponential load growth here in the state of Arizona. Let's start at the end with SRP. Can you just give us some comments, like what are you seeing? Like how much more energy do you need? How does that compare to what's happened historically? And then we'll kind of go down the line. I'll ask APS to weigh in too.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great place to start. And At SRP, we depend on a resource portfolio today of about 13,000 megawatts to be able to serve our customers. And for those of you that don't know, a megawatt is enough to power about 220 homes. And that 13,000 megawatts that we depend on today is what SRP has built up over our history over the last 100 years or so. The growth that we're seeing is tremendous. We're seeing growth in all sectors. So there's a lot of residential growth from people coming to Arizona. There's also a lot in the commercial and large industrial sectors, from advanced manufacturing, things like data centers. And that growth that we're seeing is over 4% year over year for about the next 10 years. That's more than double than what we saw in the previous decade. And that's going to drive SRP to need to more than double our system over the next 10 years. So again, to put that in context, 100 years, 13,000 megawatts, we need to double that in the next 10 years. So that's a really challenging and heavy lift for the utilities to be able to do. We're going to have to be able to add all those resources to be able to provide, as Vice President Dobson said, affordable, reliable, and sustainable power for our customers.
All right, we'll get more into that for sure and talk more about all that. Mike, what about APS? Are you seeing the same thing? And tell us about that.
Yeah, very similar story of growth for APS's service territory as well. We're similarly sized as SRP. If you look at peak load for both utilities last year, it was within like 10 megawatts of each other. And so some of the statistics that Bill shared is very similar with us. We see somewhere between 4% and 6% year over year growth for the next about 10 years into the future. And so just depending on how much of that load actually comes to fruition, very, I say, comparable state.
Okay. And let's go just on the gas front. Todd, I mean, we hear all about electricity growth. How does that impact Southwest Gas? Are you the same sort of projections outside the norm? What's it look like?
Yeah, appreciate it. And our utility partners here that we work with, APS, SRP, obviously, natural gas generates about 46% of the electric generation in Arizona. Second place is nuclear, around like 28%. And so as that electric generation is required more, obviously, we've got to be available with natural gas as well. I kind of think about it like there's an English writer and author that talks, his name is Simon Sinek. He talks about infinite game strategy versus finite game strategy, and how in infinite game strategy, you don't know who the players are. The object is to keep the game going. The rules can change, versus a finite game like baseball, where we know the rules, we have a time frame, there's winners and losers. And so, we keep that in mind in the way we work with our other utility partners to ensure that we're trying to keep the game going and that we're able to add new partners in as needed.
Game theory coming at you early before the coffee kicks in. All right. Kellie, let's talk about, so you're not a utility, but you obviously play a great role. Your company plays a role in helping solve all these problems and meet this need. Can you talk to that a little bit and what you're seeing and how that's impacting your strategy here in Arizona?
Yeah, so AES is an energy company. We work across the U.S., actually do own 2 utilities here in the U.S., AES Indiana and AES Ohio. But here in Arizona, we focus on serving our utility partners. And the load growth is extreme. I think Arizona really does need that all of the above approach that we hear from the utilities, and renewables are a big part of that solution. We are able to get online really fast and at a low cost.
Great, and so we have the regulator in the room. Commissioner Walden, thank you so much for being here. And all that you've just heard about all the load growth, and that's going to create, that comes through you, through the commission, and creates issues. And so I guess what is as a new member of the Corporation Commission, when you hear all this, what do you think? It's a lot to take in, right?
Yeah. Well, we want to make sure that we're gaining efficiencies and we're cutting the regulatory lag, and make sure that we're not cost shifting to the residential ratepayer. So those are all things we'll be looking at the commission. But for sure, we don't want to stand in the way of development, and we want to make sure that we don't miss out on opportunities.
Okay, great. And we'll get more into some policy as we go forward here. Mike, I guess, so you're expecting all of this load growth. Like, what is the challenge there? I mean, you just, okay, go build more stuff, but how does that translate into, why is that hard, or is it hard, and how do you do that?
Yeah, I'd say there's a number of challenges that we're facing. So one is the uncertainty around some of the load growth itself. And so if those that are following what's happening in the industry around data centers, and especially as it relates to AI, there's a lot of speculation out there with how much additional data center load is truly going to be needed. And there's competition, frankly, for the handful of we call them hyperscalers that are truly driving the source of that new load. And so one of the first problems we have to solve is, who are we really planning for, and what is that amount? And then from there, it's the portfolio of resources that we need to acquire to ensure reliability into the future. It's a tremendous amount of resources, especially as we think about reliability has become such a core aspect of all of our lives. And I think electricity generation and the use of it has become something that everybody kind of around us is a requirement for modern society. And so the outages, kind of aren't acceptable. And so we have to incorporate a number of different kinds of resources into the future, a large volume of those resources, and make sure that we still have the flexibility on our system to be able to respond whenever we do have events that occur. All of that while maintaining affordability for our customers and making sure that those costs that are incurred by this large class of customers that are coming in are apportioned to that class, and so that we don't have any kind of cost shift that occurs over to the residential rate class.
Okay. Yeah, go right ahead. Jump in.
Yeah, something Commissioner Walden made mention to is protecting the existing ratepayers. So part of the role that I have at Southwest Gas in our Energy Solutions group, and we also have a key accounts group, so we deal with residential and commercial up to a specific size, and then we have extremely large commercial class that would be handled by our key accounts. And in that 20-year time period, we have individuals that seek to work with the developers early in the process, learn as early as we can about their projects, and then have ongoing relationships with those individuals so that not only can we be planning for the future, but we recognize that each project has to fall under the rules of our tariff, so we've got to extend our facilities in a way that can protect the existing ratepayer as well. So, but like I said, in that time period, working proactively, we look at both the project itself and what that project could bring in the area from a load growth standpoint and future opportunities. And so, just wanted to make mention of that.
Sure, thanks. Bill, what from SRP standpoint, any different challenge or any other comment on the challenge of actually making sure that you keep the lights on and can keep the region growing?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that I tend to think about is Todd mentioned early and proactive. Mike mentioned uncertainty. You don't put a generating resource on the ground overnight, right? So these are projects that take 5+ years to develop, permit, and then ultimately get those producing power. In addition to those generating resources, we're going to have to expand infrastructure. And when I'm thinking of infrastructure, I'm talking about transmission lines. And in a lot of cases, there are even longer lead times with those transmission lines. So we need to have some certainty around the load that's coming and be able to plan to get those resources into operation when we need those to be able to serve our customers.
Okay, and I kind of want to maybe actually make this more specific to Pinal County for a little bit too. So Kellie, your company is locating a lot of projects here in Pinal County, and the utilities are building a lot of generation in Pinal County. Why? Why Pinal County?
Well, we do have operating assets here in Pinal County. We are looking across the state, but really when we look for a new site, it's where is the existing infrastructure from the utilities? Where do they have substations? Where do they have transmission lines that have available capacity for us to connect at that point? Then we'll look for, is the site buildable? Is it a good flat site? Does it have floodplains? Things like that, just from an engineering perspective. And then we'll look for landowners, private landowners that want, either a revenue stream from a lease or they're looking to sell their land. We want to have those private landowner partnerships for all of our projects as much as possible. And then, you know, that's an example. We have a project that is about to hit operations in Peoria in Maricopa County. It's located adjacent to an APS substation. We have a great landowner with a lease agreement. We have, you know, community partnerships, permitting, everything kind of fell into place, and that's all those ingredients are needed to cook up a project.
So it's the infrastructure that's around. It's not just, hey, I just want to put it here or there. There's transmission lines, there's substations, there's those kind of things.
Yep, and communities that want to see that development and want that investment and the benefits that come with that investment in their community.
Great, and we'll get more into that as well. So let me get the commissioner back involved here. You spoke about regulatory lag, and I know this commission's been really focused on trying to help solve that. Can you talk a little bit more? I mean, I'm down at the Corporation Commission all the time. I know what you mean when you say that. All the guys up here know, and gals up here know what you mean. But I'm not sure that everybody knows. You know, what kind of things are you doing, and why is that good? Awesome. Great. Well, no, thank you for that. And so the idea is that at the end of the day, if you can make that easier and more efficient, then everybody benefits and the ratepayers benefit also. And that's one of the goals that the commission's been working on, right? Yeah. Okay. Good. So okay, back to a little bit more on Pinal County. So both APS and SRP are also locating more assets here. You're buying from solar and battery facilities in the county. You're building gas in the county. Same question that I asked Kellie, why here? And do you have any different perspective? Either one of you can go first.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to make sure now we're good. Okay, I mean, I think the reason why is because, all the procurement that we do at APS is as a result of a competitive process. And so assets that are located here in Pinal compete incredibly favorably. And so I think it speaks to a positive environment here in the community, and that we're able to get these projects and find benefit for our customers and for the community around here as well. And I like the fact that you hit on the diversity of resources too, because we do see kind of solar, battery energy storage coming here too, as well as additional natural gas units within the county, which are all play a really important role on the power system going forward.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a lot to add there. I think having that existing infrastructure is really key. If you have existing natural gas pipelines, existing transmission lines, there's a couple benefits from that, right? So you lower the cost of the project, which then lowers costs for your customers. And it also reduces impacts to the community and to the environment as well, if you don't have to build new infrastructure to be able to support those projects.
So what's go ahead, Todd. Go for it.
Yeah, one thing I might add as they're referencing natural gas is that for those not dealing with us on a day-to-day basis, Southwest Gas is a distribution company, so we are taking from interstate pipelines, Kinder Morgan, Transwestern, and so the capacity that we take off of those lines, we're generally looking whether we need to upgrade a tap to make more gas available, or to bring gas to, make plans for areas where we know that development will likely happen. So the industrial parks, and say, okay, now what is our plan if and when we get a large user in that area? So just wanted to give some perspective on that from a gas side.
While you got the mic, let's follow up a little bit more on sort of gas. And people, I think, understand electricity a lot more, at least my instinct tells me that. But where do we get the gas in Arizona from? Where does it come from? How does it get here?
Yeah, good question. So the San Juan and Permian Basin in Texas and Colorado is where it's being piped in from on large interstate pipelines. And then we take off at specific spots on those pipelines where we put in a tap location strategically. And for us to do that, obviously it's costly and it's timely, but we can upgrade our existing taps as well to add capacity. We're actually buying gas at the wellhead, and then those interstate pipelines are transporting it across for us. So essentially, we have access to a block of gas as it comes through into our system.
So I often hear that there's a limited number of pipelines that bring the gas into the state. We hear about the electric utilities. We need to build more capacity, more generation. We need to build more gas lines into the state, or is that not an issue? How does that work?
Yeah, from Southwest Gas infrastructure standpoint, I mean, we are regularly looking at where we need to make some upgrades. Actually, talking with our operations personnel in planning for this meeting, and we had recently done an upgrade in Casa Grande, which is going to help to bolster that system there. As far as our distribution network, it's solid for the coming years. As far as when you're talking about a transmission pipeline, they're so large that the ability to add capacity to that system itself, that's a good question. It's kind of out of my league.
Okay, great. Let's get back to Pinal County a little bit more. So what, at least Kellie and then the utilities at the end of the table, you all are planning or building things in the county right now. Could you take us through what you have here and what you are planning and what you'd like to do in Pinal County? Whoever wants to go first. Dealer's choice. Go for it.
Thanks. So SRP has a number of assets that we rely on to provide power for our customers in Pinal County. And I'll divert just for a second to talk about the different ways that SRP procures resources. So we kind of do that in two different ways, really. One is, I kind of think of them as bookends. So we self-build projects, so that means that SRP will own and operate those projects into the future. And then we also go through an all-source RFP process, a request for proposals, where we send out a request for proposals. Developers, such as AES, submit proposals, and then ultimately we're the off-taker of those projects through a power purchase agreement. I'll talk through some of the projects that SRP is working on in Pinal County now from a self-build standpoint. And there's a couple of them that I'll go through, and one is the Copper Crossing Energy and Research Center. So that is a facility that's actually located here in Florence. At least most of it is. I think a portion is also in an unincorporated Pinal County. That is a facility that has a few different types of generation. The phase one is what we called it, was the installation of two natural gas units. Those are simple cycle natural gas units that are ultra flexible, that can start up very quickly to be able to smooth out fluctuations in the power system. Those are 99 megawatts. And then also at that location, we're developing, and it's currently in construction, SRP's first owned and operated solar facility. That's a 55 megawatt solar facility that'll be online at the end of this calendar year. Also at that site, I call it the Energy and Research Center. We're also piloting a couple of future technologies that are long duration energy storage projects. Those are typically, when you hear about storage projects, they're 4-hour storage. These projects will be 10-hour storage. So as we continue to add more storage projects to the grid, the shorter duration, they're not as effective as providing capacity. So we need to start looking at 10-hour or longer storage projects. So we're piloting a 5 megawatt, 10-hour flow battery at the Copper Crossing Energy and Research Center, with the idea that if that's successful, we could expand that and scale it up for larger utility use at a later date. The other major project that's currently in construction is an expansion of our Coolidge Generating Station. That's located about 5 miles south of the city of Coolidge. And that's an existing facility with 12 natural gas units. It's about 575 megawatts. And what we're adding is basically doubling that amount. So we're adding an additional 12 simple cycle natural gas units there for an additional 575 megawatts. And then we're also very active in renewables as well. There's a number of projects that we brought in through our all-source RFP process that are already in operation within Pinal County. A few projects with AES, the East Line, West Line, Central Line projects. We have 11 Mile is another project that we've recently put online within Pinal County. And then we have some additional projects that we're currently in development. Not in a position to share too many details about that, but SRP is committed to working with Pinal County and the municipalities and jurisdictions as we work through development of those projects.
Yeah, APS, I mean, kind of most notably, I believe, has the Sundance facility that's here in Pinal County, and recently, over the last couple of years, has been expanding that facility. That's a natural gas facility that we own and operate there, and we're adding 2 additional, simple cycle combustion turbines, much like the ones that Bill described on SRP system. I wanted to highlight, too, that that's a great example of kind of the blend that APS likes to look at into the future of what assets does it make sense for APS to own, and where we have existing sites and a technology that we're very comfortable operating and we have kind of all of the support for. We find that those ownership opportunities can be very appealing for us. They can be very economic as they compete with other opportunities in the market. And then as we look at other technology types and as we look at resource needs that may need to be developed very quickly, we'll leverage a lot of the developers in that space, AES being one of them that we have projects with. And they allow us to kind of also leverage the broader market forces and get incredibly competitive power projects built in a short amount of time so that we can maintain reliability for our customers too.
Commissioner Walden, I saw you grab the mic.
I was just going to add that the commission supports the all-source RFP, so we're looking at the most cost-effective energy that's out there. So I wanted to make sure everybody understood that that's our process too.
Yeah, good point, good point. Kelly?
Yeah, just to answer the second part of the question, because Bill took my first part, that we have operating assets here in Pinal County. But I can't say too many details because it is confidential, but we do have a few projects that we're working on that are either being driven by communities who have reached out to us and said, hey, we want to work with AES. We're excited about what you're doing here. We know that there's a need for power here in Pinal County and in our community, so let's talk. And then we have other partnerships from not necessarily a community, but a large customer who is looking at a kind of behind the meter solution to solve their load growth issue in a very short amount of time. So we've got two coming that I hope to share more information soon.
Great. So how nervous should we in the room be? A lot of people here are in economic development. They're developing land. They're doing things to help this county grow and the state. How nervous should we be that we're not going to be able to keep up with the needs of growth right now? How confident are the utilities that we can keep up, or what are talk us through that? And I don't know, Bill, I'll throw you that hard one first for fun.
I think from SRP's perspective, we're very confident that we're going to be able to serve the load that we need to be able to serve our customers. We use a very robust planning process. We call it our integrated system planning process, and that's really looking kind of across the entire system to make sure that we're putting not just the generating resources in place, but we're also thinking about being proactive about transmission infrastructure to be able to serve that load. So we go through that process. We have a lot of interaction with the different jurisdictions, the cities, the towns, to make sure that we understand the types of loads, the timing for those loads, and when they're going to be coming onto our system so that we can plan appropriately. And that's not something we just do once every so often. We go through that planning cycle every single year, update those plans, and we make sure we incorporate that into our processes. So I talked about you don't just add generating resources or transmission infrastructure overnight. It's a long process. So right now, we just put out our 2025 all-source RFP. That's for projects that will serve customers in 2031, 2032. So we really have to think ahead to be able to make sure that we have those projects in the pipeline now to be able to serve customers in the future.
When I think about how do you maintain reliability, and this question of how confident we are into the future of how we're going to maintain the reliability that everybody enjoys today, I think there's a couple of different parts to it, and that's the planning processes that you have in place, the execution and, I mean, how are you able to use competitive all-source RFPs and other tools to be able to actually kind of find projects and then move them to fruition. And then there's also the constructs that we exist in as utilities and what benefits can be provided by things like broader markets as well. And APS is responding in all three of these fronts. As the complexity of the system is increasing, we've increased the tools that we're using and getting more sophisticated tools and better analysis to help inform our plans into the future. We also are doing yearly all-source RFPs to get the resources that we need. And then finally, we are also looking at joining a day-ahead market as well into the future, which provides even more savings for our customers and a better regional reliability.
What is, for those that don't follow the energy world, what's a day-ahead market? What's that mean?
The day-ahead market allows us to partner with other utilities that are throughout the West, and it's a resource-sharing scheme is a kind of easy way to think about it. So when there's available resources in other places, and it could be as far north as, you know, Washington, and, you know, as you think about kind of in the summertime, and Washington's not usually as hot as it is here in Phoenix and in Pinal County in the summertime, they may have additional resources available. And so if we're in a market with them, that we can have access to those resources and be able to use those to help serve our customers.
Great. Todd, you look like you're, or Kelly, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
The microphone's a great symbol if I want to talk.
I know, it's mine, it's mine. No, I was just gonna say, you know, Arizona is a priority market for AES, and you know the ways that we're planning for this load growth to make sure that we are serving our utility customers is our supply chain. So ensuring that we have enough transformers, ensuring that we have master service agreements with panel and battery suppliers that are building manufacturing facilities here in the U.S. Like, we are planning for all of these things, knowing that our utility customers need that from us as well.
Great. Todd, do you have something to add?
Yeah, just a quick add-on. You know, obviously Southwest Gas is always looking for ways to increase and bolster our reliability of our service. We added an LNG facility in Tucson a couple years ago, which helps to increase reliability on extreme type weather days. Here in the Pinal area, there's the potential salt caverns owned by Kinder Morgan, which would provide natural gas storage on a larger scale. And there was also recently a docket introduced by Commissioner Myers that's going to look at the infrastructure and adding to that here potentially in Arizona as it relates to natural gas. So something we're excited about.
Great. Yeah, I was going to ask you about those potential storage caverns it's right here in Pinal County. Are there other places in the state, or Pinal County is uniquely situated for that?
Yeah, my understanding is that based on the fact that they're owned by Kinder Morgan, it's a unique situation in the sense that it would be more readily available. I imagine there's other salt storage or potential salt areas that would work, but I just don't know the ownership of those, which would lead to that path.
I was just going to add that at the commission, we understand that with all these projects, our utilities need access to cheap capital. So we're trying to ensure that our utilities are healthy and that we're not doing anything to drag down that credit rating or drive and scare investors away.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I was going to ask you just to that on you know, I asked the utilities if they're worried or how worried we should be. Like, when you see this load growth and what we're facing, like, what do you think? Are you worried? Are you confident? What keeps you up at night?
I'm not worried because, like, as you heard today, the utilities understand the situation that we're in. We have the integrated resource plans to ensure the adequacy of our electricity. Nobody wants to see blackouts, so I know there's a lot of planning that's gone into that. And I mean, I'm not worried about it because I've met with the utilities that have said we are prioritizing reliability. We cannot sacrifice residential reliability in order for there to be development. So it's happening. The development is coming. It may not be as fast as some of the data center people want it to be, but I can assure you the commission's not standing in the way of that.
So to that point, you mentioned data centers. This has just happened, so I don't know if you have any perspective or not, but yesterday there was a docket opened at the Corporation Commission by the chairman to look at data centers. Do you have any I don't know, any fresh insights or anything you want? What do you want to get out of that, or what are you thinking about?
I think you open that so that we can ensure people that we are not cost shifting these costs to the residential consumer.
Okay, great. And then just since you got the mic, more on policy. What are there things that you're looking at over the next year, 2, 3 years over your term that you've already identified that you want to try to do this or that, or that the commission's doing that you want to highlight for us?
Yeah, I'd like to see the commission help encourage the utilities to do formula rates. So that's where it's just a process where we true up the expenses every single year. And so some of our utilities are a little worried about doing formula rates because they've been in the same process for years and years and years. But going to formula rates will ensure that there's more cash flow into the companies, and that will help with this project development so that we don't have to take out as much debt for it.
Okay, and the idea there being that if just continually making it more efficient for the utilities to be able to actually go and build all this stuff and do it in a way that we don't have reliability issues.
Yeah, well, if you're truing up the expenses every single year, then you're going to continue to get that cash flow coming and coming rather than dragging your expenses around for 5 or 10 years until you go to your next rate case.
Any of the utilities want to talk to that at all, or? No. Okay. No reason to mess with a good. She's got a good message for you, so yeah, leave it there.
Yeah, Bill here not regulated by the ACC on this particular matter, so. Yeah, I mean, yeah, APS is happy to work with the commission on this particular construct. We think that there's a ton of benefit to customers by reducing that regulatory lag, because at the end of the day, all of the carrying costs of those projects ultimately get borne by customers. And so if you're able to kind of limit some of those carrying costs, and if you're able to have that true up in a more regular fashion, a year-to-year basis, I think it promotes rate gradualism. You don't have like large increases and sudden spikes in bills, as well as being an overall better outcome for all of our customers.
Great. So we kind of glossed over it earlier, or at least I did, but when you all talked about what's going on in Pinal County, I mean, you described billions of dollars of investment in the county, which has got to have great economic benefits for the folks here, for the local governments, school districts, and all those through the taxing authority. Do you have any, I don't know, Kellie, have you guys looked at that kind of stuff, or speak to the benefits of this investment locally?
Yeah, definitely tax benefits are certainly a huge part of our projects. We work with ATRA, the Arizona Tax Research Authority, to make sure that our models are accurately reflecting the property tax benefits that we're communicating to communities. That's a tongue twister. And then, additional benefits that our projects are having, we offer a lot of construction jobs, some operational jobs. We are not a draw on resources. There's not a lot of traffic for these facilities. They're very quiet neighbors, and we don't use a lot of water, if any, which is great for Pinal County. We want that water going towards farmers and residences and other manufacturing that needs that water. And then, additionally, the batteries that we're building gets back to that grid reliability, grid response. They're able to ramp up in less than a minute. So if things are happening on the grid that SRP and APS need to respond to, these are fast.
Great. So the batteries and the solar, we've talked about those a few times today. For the utilities, you hear a lot, sometimes folks are saying that you're adopting them just because, I don't know, it looks good or whatever, but you're making financial decisions that are for your customers. And you've talked about the all-source RFPs, but why are you building solar? Why are you building batteries?
I think you kind of hit on it in the way you asked the question.
It's the leading question.
Yeah. Because it's a part of a least cost portfolio into the future. And so, I mean, APS, and if we're going to maintain reliability for the amount of load growth that we have, we need an all of the above resource strategy. I mean, like, we're looking for whatever economic resources we can to bring forward to maintain that reliability for our customers. And so solar is a part of that. Wind energy is a part of that. Additional natural gas is a part of that into the future. And as you really kind of look longer term, we're excited about other technology types. I really am looking forward to seeing more small modular nuclear reactors into the future, or advanced nuclear technologies. That's something that's still being invested in today and isn't necessarily commercially ready today. But I think with investment, that will be an incredibly promising technology going forward. So we really need all of these things in order to maintain that reliability.
And Bill, SRP is not just doing solar and batteries just for the fluff or something, right? I mean, it's the same thing. You guys are, it makes sense. It's economic.
Yeah, through our integrated system planning process that I mentioned earlier, as part of a balanced system plan that is lowest cost. And it's also resilient in a number of different future scenarios. So we're building a resource portfolio that is able to deal with different types of load growth and different situations in the future. That includes renewables like solar, like wind, battery energy storage projects. The other part of that is we also adopted some fairly aggressive sustainability goals. So we're looking to add carbon-free projects to be able to meet those goals in the future.
And I'll just make mention, since we're talking about emerging technology, we have a team at our company that's actually called Emerging Technology. They are looking at regularly renewable natural gas, coming from landfills, whether it's waste products. We also have those that are looking into hydrogen and hydrogen blending, where we're putting hydrogen into the natural gas systems. We have some large commercial customers where we do already provide that hydrogen natural gas blend. And then I guess I'll say the other thing as it relates to natural gas is that despite all the emerging technology related items, I guess one of the positive things is, according to the American Gas Association, we have over 100-year supply of natural gas here locally in the United States. So it's not something we have to rely on from another country.
That's great. So, go ahead, Commissioner Walden.
The commission is technologically agnostic. So we're not prioritizing one technology over another. We're open to all new technology. What we're looking at is the lowest cost and the most reliable.
And since we're talking new technology, I don't know if you want to comment. You guys at the commission, and I think it was your amendment last meeting, I think, implemented what they call a virtual power plant program, which is designed to save everybody money. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
Yeah, so the virtual power plant is to use the battery in your home for the utility to tap into. So it's not something the utilities are going to do all the time, but it's during those summer hours where if they need to meet peak demand very quickly, they can tap into those batteries. And what the commission ensured is that there was no cost shift. So we're open to pilot programs, and this one is a pilot, but we made the utility go back with your clients and I think all the different groups that were involved to put together a plan where they could buy that power from the battery with no cost shift. And so once we saw that that was doable, we went ahead and approved it. Now, the reason why there had to be an amendment, so it was my office's amendment that changed the order, is that our staff had really different opinions about it. So normally we're in agreement with our staff, but they were really caught up on the fact that we couldn't prove everything they wanted us to prove, but that's because it's a pilot and it's new, so we really didn't have data to do that. So it had to take some guts, I guess, to say, we're going to just strike everything that staff said, and I think the other commissioners weren't sure how to do that, but my office, if you heard me on the campaign trail, has those guts to do those things, so everybody was in agreement with our amendment, and we got that pilot passed.
Yeah, and thank you for doing that. And your great staff is here today that I'm sure
They're
helped
here
you,
today, yes, my policy advisor and my deputy policy advisor.
And that's a really, the project which you were just talking about is a really interesting, allowing people to invest their own money in batteries at home and then let the utility flip a switch and use them, which is pretty cool. What other new technologies are you all working on? Or what do you see in the future coming up that can help us all? Kellie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think we are most excited about the improvements for battery safety that we've seen over the last few years with the NFPA 855 and the UL requirements. The batteries have gotten so much safer than they were originally, and so we're really excited to see that, and then going above and beyond what those regulations are requiring. we have a battery safety expert within our team. We just had him out yesterday to talk with a local mayor and city manager to really dive into the details of what does that look like on these, basically what looks like a shipping container. What's inside there? What's preventing these fires from happening? And so we're really, really excited about all of the advancements that are coming for battery safety. And then the other project that I'm really excited about is here in Pinal County, we are partnering with the University of Arizona, bear down. I'm also a Wildcat, so
Bear down?
Yeah, very excited about this one. We've partnered with the U of A to study agrivoltaics at one of our operating solar sites. And so what they're really looking at is what's the benefit of planting underneath the solar panels? How much less water are we using? How much better are those plants growing because you're lowering the temperature that those plants are growing under? And so we're really excited to see the results of that research.
And I was sharing this in a previous question too, but I mean, I think we're really excited about new nuclear technologies into the future and investment there. We're also really watching closely what's happening in the long duration energy storage marketplace. There's a lot of interesting technologies that are kind of still in the development phases there, and we're watching to see which of those kind of becomes mature quickly.
Let me just ask you really quick, Mike, when you say long duration storage, like how long, what does that mean? When we're talking about batteries or like 4 hours or something, what are you talking about?
Yeah, typically we say, 8 or 10 hours or more is considered a long duration energy storage project. And then we also, look to see some of the existing technologies out here that don't get built as often, and pump storage is one of those where instead of using like a lithium ion battery to do storage, you use, a water reservoir. We're excited to see projects like that into the future as well.
Mike, what's SRP looking at for new technology? Sorry, Bill. I almost made it without messing up.
So as far as our research efforts, we have a pretty robust a group that's looking at different technologies, and we also partner with the local universities, and we're always looking at different technologies that we can apply to our system to be able to bring those different resources on. I mentioned our long duration energy storage pilot that we're doing at the Copper Crossing Energy and Research Center. That pilot is currently in development. We're also evaluating responses to a request for proposal for an additional long duration energy storage pilot project. So we anticipate awarding those probably in the next few months. There will be potentially a long duration energy storage pilot that we look at doing up at our Coronado generating station. And then we're also looking to do another one at right here in Pinal County at the Copper Crossing Energy and Research Center. So just like Mike mentioned, the long duration energy storage projects I think are going to be very important as we look out into the future. We're also interested in advanced nuclear technology. We're evaluating different sites across the state of Arizona where that might be feasible to site one of those new nuclear projects. Kind of the challenge with the new nuclear is that is a very long development type of resource. We think that it's probably in the 2040s before that type of resource will be demonstrated and really able to be developed to be able to serve SRP customers. And I think Todd mentioned hydrogen. That's also a technology that we're looking at. I think that's also another kind of long development type technology that may be a decade or more away. But we currently have technology, the simple cycle gas turbines that we're putting in at our Coolidge generating station for that expansion. Those are actually ready to burn hydrogen today. The real challenge there is the infrastructure and actually being able to produce the amount of hydrogen that you would need to be able to produce electricity. So those are all challenges that we're evaluating, looking at, and could potentially help serve our customers in the future.
All right, since it's possible to bet on literally everything these days, if we're betting, what's the under-over on when we have the next nuclear thing generating electricity in Arizona? I guess you already said the 2040s, so you're kind of out there. Let's go down the road. What do we think?
I see we're starting a poly market exercise here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. We're with the SRP on this. I think it's going to be the late 2030s or 2040s. I think the number one challenge with things like this is APS in particular, we're incredibly sensitive to cost for our customers. And whenever you're developing a new technology, those first couple of serial numbers that come with the line are the most expensive of them all. And so we're not going to take on that risk and ask our customers to pay that additional cost. And so Once you get that level of investment, I think that we want to take advantage of it when it's kind of come down that cost curve a little bit and is competitive.
Anyone have a different bet? Anyone want to throw a stake in the ground on that one?
I don't have a difference in time. I agree with this too, but I think we're seeing the private sector develop it, and I think that's what's going to help bring down costs for us. Like the commission couldn't support micronuclear right now because it's so expensive. It's when the costs come down that we'll see more people do it. And so I'm hearing late 2030s. I know Amazon's put a lot of equity into micronuclear. They're saying 2030s. So then for us, I think it's going to be the 2040.
Okay, great. No one wants to go on some different direction. All right, here's so hot take. What the tariffs is that? How's that going to impact our energy world? Anyone want to stick their neck out and say something about that? TBA, TBD.
Is yikes an acceptable answer?
Okay, all right. That wasn't in your 15-year plan. That wasn't in your IRP last time. Yeah.
So I've heard from our water utilities that they are receiving letters from their vendors and suppliers to expect costs to go up and supply chain management issues.
Sounds like a safe bet.
I just maybe want to add to that. I mean, APS does do its procurement from a wide variety of sources to help with, managing some of these tariff risks into the future. And so I think that it is the benefit by having such a robust developer market. I mean, AES being one of the folks that we work with is that if you have diverse supply chains, that hopefully you won't have to bear the full brunt of the worst of these.
Get in there, yeah.
Well, and I think I mentioned earlier, the way that we're trying to mitigate our supply chain risks with master service agreements with manufacturers that are here in the U.S. Like all of our projects from 2027 operation dates and beyond are planned to be using U.S. manufactured panels and batteries. In addition to that, we will buy all of our substations much earlier and have like a wallet program that we can disperse across our entire U.S. portfolio, which really allows us to, respond quickly to utility needs if we need to speed up a project or something like that. But.
Great. Todd, any early readout on how it's going to impact your world?
I was just going to say to the group, obviously our system is primarily, if it's distribution, it's polyethylene pipe, and if it's our high pressure stuff that we're talking for large scale users and large scale reinforcement, we've got that steel pipe. And so there has been times in my career that there has been a long lead time on that pipe to get it out of the coder's yard for various reasons. And so anybody's guess on the tariffs and how that's going to affect is as good as mine, but just adding that point for perspective.
All right, and then just sort of lightning round, like looking ahead, is there something you think that maybe people aren't thinking about that we're going to see in the energy world in the next 10 years or so, or some curveball or something interesting? What do you got? Anything exciting? Surprise us with something. Whoever wants to take it, or don't, and we'll move on to the next question. It's your panel, not mine. Go for it.
I don't know if I could think of anything that's unexpected, but one of the things from a planning perspective that we think about is the more certainty that we can have around anything, whether that's supply chain, whether it's policy, that helps us plan for the future. So anything that creates uncertainty for the utilities, whether that's the load forecast, what the economy is going to look like, that creates a struggle or a challenge for utilities to be able to plan effectively. So as we think about planning, we're developing plans that are resilient in the face of that uncertainty. So I don't think I can predict what that curveball is going to be or what new technology may show up, but I think by planning resiliently, you can maybe be able to respond to those changes most effectively.
All right, I'll change gears for maybe the last one here, but we've got a lot of local elected officials. We've got some mayors, we've got some council members in the room. All these projects that are being built, they're going to see, or boards of supervisors, they're going to see them, they're going to have to consider them and approve like the land use issues. And the permitting, what can the local governments, what do you say to them? What can they do to help you to address these issues, for the region and for the whole state? Who wants to go first? I got to call on people. Kellie, you want to talk about it?
I can take it first. Yeah, I think I just like to say that we love to work with our local communities, our local towns and our counties, you know, work with them on how they want us to design the project, if there's certain things that they need to see as part of our designs. And because of that, you know, we don't want to see the state bypass all of the authority that the local jurisdictions have for permitting our projects. We want to continue working with them.
Good answer. Good answer, definitely. I know I like working on all these projects with the cities and the counties. Yeah, I mean, it's a great give and take. Mike, you look like maybe you want to add something.
I was just going to say, I mean, APS has been a part of Arizona, I mean, before Arizona was a state. And so we always look forward to engaging with our communities. We want to create partnerships. We want to find places that it makes the most sense for us to have our infrastructure. We appreciate, you know, talking with folks and understanding the community's needs and desires better. APS, whenever we're doing any kind of big infrastructure siting, there's always a dedicated siting effort associated with that. We've got a great team of folks that engage in that space, and so just invite all of you that participate in local government to reach out to our public affairs teams or to our siting teams, and if there's a project that's happening in your area that you have questions about, we're happy to answer them.
All right, well, we did this incredibly efficiently. I'm getting the stare down. It's 9 o'clock. That's when we end. So thank you all so much for being here and doing this. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause.
I want to give another shout out to Bill and to Mike and Commissioner and Kellie and Todd and to you, Court. So let's give another round of applause, please. Thank you, guys. Now, wait, before you do leave, I know we didn't have time for a question and answer, but I know that the folks will be here, so if you have a particular question, go ahead and ask. And we have this fine Pinal partnership hats. If you don't wear a hat, I know you know somebody who does. So, no, we're switching it up, and you even get one, Court. How about that? There you go. Thank you. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Commissioner. All right. Thank you, everybody. I just want to, number one, thank everybody for being here today. Really appreciate it. I want to keep us on time. A big thank you again to SRP for sponsoring our breakfast this morning. Don't forget, name tags, leave them on your way out. They're not any good to you, but we could reuse them, so we want to recycle. And then please save the date for May 2nd, 2025 at Gold Canyon. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Appreciate you.